Some men marry for love. Some marry for companionship, for family, for faith, for the kind of future you build slowly together without keeping score. And then there are men like Nathan Cole. Nathan married for one reason only, and he was very, very good at hiding it. For 14 months, he was everything a woman could want: attentive, charming, patient. He remembered the small things: her favorite coffee order, the name of her childhood dog, the anniversary of her mother's passing. He showed up exactly when he was needed and disappeared exactly when he wasn't, like a man who had studied what love was supposed to look like and practiced it until it became indistinguishable from the real thing. Nadia noticed things about him, small things that didn't quite add up. The way his eyes moved to her father's paintings, before they moved to her face, when he walked into a room. The way he listened just a little too carefully, whenever money came up in conversation, leaning forward just slightly, the way a man does when the subject suddenly matters to him. She noticed, but noticing and knowing are two different things. And Nadia, who had spent her whole life being careful about who she trusted, found herself wanting just once to be wrong about someone. So she said yes, and Nathan Cole smiled the smile of a man who believed he had just won the longest game he had ever played. He had no idea that the game had never been his to win. Stay with me, because what Nadia did next, quietly, legally, overnight, is one of the most calculated moves I have ever had the privilege of telling. Nadia Voss was 31 years old and had inherited more money than most people see in 3 lifetimes. Her grandfather had built a pharmaceutical empire from a single patent in the 1970s. Her father had grown it carefully, conservatively, without flash, the kind of wealth that stays quiet, because it doesn't need to announce itself. When her father passed, he left Nadia everything, not just the money, the holdings, the offshore accounts, the properties across 4 countries, the art collection that had been quietly appreciating for 40 years. All of it. To the outside world, Nadia was simply a woman of considerable means, who lived modestly, dressed without showiness, and rarely talked about what she owned. To men like Nathan Cole, she was a target. Nathan had a particular talent for finding women like Nadia, not rich women in general. That was too broad. He was specific in his hunting. He looked for women who had inherited wealth, rather than earned it themselves. Women who were private about money, not performative. Women who were, in his own internal language, underprotected, meaning they trusted feeling over documentation, connection over contracts, love over legal frameworks. He had found 2 before Nadia. The first ended with a quiet settlement that he spent within a year. The second lasted 18 months and left him with enough to fund the lifestyle that helped him find the third. By the time he sat across from Nadia at a dinner party in the spring, he had refined his approach to something close to an art form. What he could not have known, because he never looked closely enough, was that Nadia had been briefed on him before they even spoke. A mutual friend, someone who had watched Nathan operate in a previous circle, had sent Nadia a single message 2 days before the dinner. The man who's going to sit next to you Friday, be careful. He does his homework. Make sure you do yours." Nadia did her homework, and then she went to the dinner anyway, not because she was naive, because she had a plan of her own. 14 months of courtship. Nadia played her role carefully, warm but not excessive, open but not unguarded. She gave Nathan exactly enough to keep him interested, and just enough doubt to keep him working for it. He proposed at the restaurant where they had their first date. The ring was expensive. He had done his research on what she would notice. She said yes. She kissed him. She cried, just a little, in the way he had been hoping she would. And she went home that night and called her lawyer. He signed the prenuptial agreement. Her lawyer said, "Everything looks standard." To him, Nadia said. Does it look standard to him? It looks exactly like what he expected to see. All the right clauses, all the right language. He had his own lawyer review it. Good. Nadia, are you sure about this? She was quiet for a moment. He chose me because of what I own. He has never once, in 14 months, asked me what I actually want from my life. Not once. Silence on the other end. I'm sure, she said. The wedding was small, elegant, exactly as Nathan had suggested. He had very particular ideas about the guest list and the photographs. He wanted the right people to see it, the right families, the right names. Nadia let him choose. She had bigger things to arrange. What Nathan did not know, what his lawyer had not caught, because Nathan had pushed him to review quickly, impatient, certain he had already won, were 3 clauses buried in the prenuptial agreement. Not hidden, not illegal, written in plain legal language, available to any lawyer who took the time to read carefully. Clause 1. In the event of inheritance transfer, following the death of a co-signatory trust member, all newly acquired assets shall be assessed under the couple's joint liability framework. Clause 2. Any offshore financial restructuring initiated within the first calendar year of marriage shall be jointly binding on both parties regardless of individual authorization. Clause 3. The right to dissolve the marriage within the first 3 years carries a full assumption of liability by the party initiating the dissolution. Nathan's lawyer had seen the clauses. He'd flagged them as standard protective language, slightly weighted toward the wife. He had recommended Nathan sign anyway, because the fortune was real, because the numbers were real, and because neither of them had asked the one question that mattered most: what exactly was the fortune made of? Let me stop here, because I want you to understand what Nadia had been building for the 8 months before the wedding. This was not impulse. This was not anger. This was not a woman scorned, making reckless decisions from a place of hurt. This was architecture. While Nathan was curating the wedding photographs and mapping out which of her accounts he planned to access first, Nadia was meeting with her financial team every Tuesday morning in a quiet office that Nathan had never been invited to see. She was converting, slowly, legally, precisely, liquid assets moved into long-term, restricted trusts, inaccessible for a minimum of 15 years, protected by structures that predated the marriage, and were therefore entirely outside its reach. The real estate holdings were transferred into a family foundation, established in her grandfather's name charitable designation, completely untouchable. The offshore accounts, the ones Nathan's people had identified as the core of the fortune, were restructured, not emptied, restructured. The assets inside them were converted into liability instruments, debt obligations attached to a series of distressed property loans that Nadia's team had specifically acquired for exactly this purpose. On paper, the accounts still showed the same numbers, the same balances, the same portfolio, but the nature of what those numbers represented had changed entirely. They were no longer assets, they were obligations, and under the clauses Nathan had signed, the ones his lawyer had called, slightly weighted toward the wife. The moment the inheritance transferred into the couple's joint framework, those obligations transferred too, all of them, at once. Overnight, Nathan went to sleep on a Tuesday, believing he had married a fortune. He woke up on a Wednesday, legally responsible for more debt than he had ever seen in his life. He found out the way Nadia had always intended him to, not through a confrontation, not through a lawyer's letter, not through anything dramatic. He logged into the estate management portal, the one she had given him access to, as a wedding gift, framed as a gesture of trust, and he saw the numbers. She was in the kitchen when he came downstairs. She heard him on the stairs, the particular sound of someone moving faster than they mean to, off balance, a man whose legs have gone uncertain. Beneath him, he came through the door, holding his phone, like a weapon he didn't know how to use. "What is this?" "Good morning," she said. "Nadia, what is this? These numbers are accurate. This isn't possible. There were assets here. I saw them. My lawyer saw them. This was a portfolio worth." "It was a portfolio," she said. Past tense. Things change. He stared at her, and in that moment, for the first time in 14 months of careful performance, the charm was simply gone. Not faded, not cracked, gone. What was underneath it was not ugliness exactly. It was something smaller than that, smaller and more frightened. The face of a man who has just discovered that the trap he thought he was setting was always the one he was walking into. "You knew," he said, "from the night before the dinner party, where we met," she said. "A friend warned me. I decided to find out for myself what kind of man you were. So this was all a choice," she said, "made with full information, the same way you made yours." He tried everything in the weeks that followed. Lawyers, motions, appeals, friends who owed him favors, people he had helped before, who were suddenly unavailable. Every avenue led back to the same place, the clauses he had signed, the framework he had agreed to, the liability that was now legally completely his, the prenuptial agreement that his own lawyer had called standard protective language, had protected exactly one person, and it wasn't him. The divorce he initiated, confident at first that he could walk away clean, triggered Clause 3, full assumption of liability by the party who filed, which was him. He had chosen to leave, and in doing so, had chosen to carry every obligation that came with the estate he thought he was inheriting, the life he had spent years building toward, the properties, the accounts, the carefully curated image, came apart in the space of one financial quarter. One by one, quietly, the way things fall apart. When there is no real foundation beneath them, Nadia moved out of the city 6 months after the divorce was finalized. Not to hide, not to start over in the way people do when they are running from something. She moved because she had always wanted to live near the sea, and she had spent 14 months pretending to want things that suited Nathan's plans. Instead of her own, she bought a house on the coast, small by the standards of what she could afford, large enough for a kitchen that got morning light, and a garden she could actually tend herself. She walked on the beach most mornings. She called her lawyer on Tuesdays. She had dinner with real friends, people who had known her before Nathan, people who had sat with her through the years of careful planning, and never once questioned her judgment. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She didn't post anything online. That was never the point. The point was never to destroy him. The point was to make sure that someone who had spent years treating people as instruments of his own ambition finally met the one consequence his charm could not talk its way out of. She had one conversation with him months later when he called from a number she didn't recognize. His voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it, stripped of the performance entirely. "Why?" he asked. "You could have just said no. You could have walked away. Why go through all of this?" She thought about it for a moment. Then she said, "Because you would have found someone else, and she would not have seen you coming." He had no answer for that. She hung up, gently, not out of cruelty, because there was simply nothing left to say. There is a version of this story where Nadia is the villain, the woman who set a trap, who let a man believe something false, who used the law the way he used charm, as a tool aimed deliberately, with full knowledge of the result. I understand that reading, but here is what I keep coming back to. Nathan Cole spent 14 months pretending to love a woman he had selected as a financial target. He studied her, performed for her, said the right things at exactly the right moments for over a year, not because he felt them, but because he had calculated that they would work. Nadia spent those same 14 months watching, learning, building something that would hold, regardless of what he did next. Two people entered that relationship with full information and clear intentions. One of them was honest about it. The most expensive mistake a person who underestimates others can make is assuming that intelligence only looks one way, that power only moves one way, that the person who is quiet must therefore be unaware. Nathan Cole looked at Nadia and saw a fortune. He never once thought to look at what she was building. By the time he did, it was already complete. If someone has ever underestimated you, if you have ever been the quiet one that people assumed wasn't paying attention, this story is for you. They are always watching. They are always building. And one day, the trap snaps shut, not with noise, but with paperwork. That was Nadia's story. If it made you feel something, leave a comment below. I read every single one. Subscribe to Emberfold Tales for a new story every week. Some loud, some quiet, all of them true, in the ways that matter most.